in our lives. Cutting this position is penny wise and pound foolish. The same is true of many positions that have been cut in the schools. Fixing the problems caused by lost position ends up costing money and setting us back. Thank you.
Next on Zoom is Colin.
Yes, hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Well, your
Hi,
name, city, or town, please.
Yes, hi, Colin Hoffmeister, Northampton, Massachusetts, and I appreciate the time. I have a couple general comments, and the first is that I just have to express my dismay in the direction that the city has gone the last several years. Been a property owner for 32 years, and I've never felt so disenfranchised by the reaction and the communication by the city at many levels. And I'm appalled at the cutbacks to the school. And I know there's pressure by the city to balance budgets, and they're jamming, housing all over the city against the will of many neighborhoods, including my neighborhood. And there's a common theme in successful neighborhoods. If you look across successful communities across the country, ones that have good tax base and have good communities, and that is healthy schools. If you have good schools, people want to have their families want to come and have their kids educated there. When you're cutting the schools, you're really hurting the community. My next point is about this petition that's on the agenda tonight, 25.251, item 13, the petition to amend chapter 350.4, interpretation, the upzoning for a developer of a residential lot on Phillips Place to turn it into a commercial lot in order to put a 70-bedroom, 55-foot tall, some 200-foot long apartment building. We proposed this ordinance several weeks ago, and we were given bad advice by the council. Perhaps it was by mistake. It was voted down, and then the next day we were told that, well, we didn't have to present it that way. We resubmit the ordinance, and it's been slow walked. So tomorrow is the follow-up meeting for this hearing, and I really just hope that you are behind this and support and open a dialogue. The neighborhood is open to housing, but putting this size building is just not a good thing for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin.
Next in the room, Ray Saunders.
Yeah, good evening. So my name's Ray Saunders, and I live in Northampton. I'm here to ask this council to support a pilot program that could save lives, an emergency legal response system for community members at risk of sudden illegal detention and deportation. Under the Trump administration, people including visa holders, legal residents, and even U.S. citizens have been detained without warning before they can speak to a lawyer or see a judge. It's happening now, and it's accelerating. We've seen the difference it makes when legal responders can act quickly. Mahmoud Khalil, a 29-year-old father and graduate student, remains in a Louisiana detention center despite no criminal charges. Rumeysa Öztürk, a 30-year-old graduate student, was illegally taken out of Massachusetts and held for 6 weeks without charges or a hearing. But there is hope. Mohsen Madawi, a 34-year-old legal resident detained during his citizenship interview in Vermont, had a community that was prepared. They created an emergency legal response system which allowed his lawyer to quickly file a habeas petition blocking his transfer out of state. After 2 weeks, he was released and is now awaiting a fair trial. Due process is a constitutional right for everyone living in this country. We need a rapid response system, something as simple as a text alert that notifies trained legal responders who can act quickly to prevent people from being removed from Mass. Cities like Portland, Maine, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Oakland, California have created similar programs through partnerships with nonprofits and attorneys. Northampton can too. Trump has already targeted activists, queer and trans people, and BIPOC communities through executive orders and bias laws. There's real risk that detention may be next. If we don't act now, more of us could be swept into a system that denies our basic rights. Northampton must act to lead with compassion, defend due process, and protect the people who call this city home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Daniel Bryan.
Hi guys, sorry I couldn't be in the room. As Colin mentioned, I'm here once again reiterating that the planning director, without a plan during the pandemic, passed a bunch of very questionable ordinances that gave her tremendous amount of power to, for instance, dump a giant 50-foot tall building spanning the entire length of all you can see from my entire yard, my window, everything. It's going to be full of people that need to park somewhere. They'll be parking on our street. When asked about it, the planning director says the market will take care of it. She's Republican. That's what that means. If you believe in the market, free markets, deregulation, if you subscribe to supply side economics, if you like organizations like Strong Towns that lobby for business interests, then you're a conservative. You're a Republican. I need the people of this town to start to understand that we have a Republican government. I don't think everybody in this council room is a Republican, but you guys are doing all the work for all the Republicans who run this city. We have a shadow government. It has nothing to do with the mayor. It's our planning board. She has a tentacle in everything. She's the reason potholes don't get fixed now. She is the reason trees get shut down and chopped down and birds get killed without any sort of permit. Anything you can think of that's wrong with this town, including cutting my daughter's vegetable garden, is to pay for the mistakes of this planning director. She and her department can't be bothered to plan, but they insert themselves into every single otherwise democratic process. They get rid of all oversight, any review, anything that would ensure safety or the well-being of the city. They hate the city, and that's why they want to build a brand new, disgusting, yuppie city, boom, right on top of it. You guys can either stop that or you can be a part of it. Thus far, you've been a part of it. I hope tonight is the beginning of people standing up against this. It's not where we want to live. It is where Caroline Mish, director of the planning department, wants to live, as well as I believe the rest of her department, who are, just as complicit. And this Wayne guy, who I think is still paid and is meeting with Strong Towns all the time. So,
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Simon, you're
Good night, Archie. Good
Thank
night,
you.
Paula.
your city or town, Dan?
I'm in Northampton, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
You walked into that one.
Amelia Durbin.
Everyone, my name is Amelia Durbin. I am a resident of Northampton. I'm a 16-year-old junior at Northampton High School. I first want to address the City Council and Mayor Shara and say that the schools need more funding than is proposed in the budget. There is just so many. I understand the complexity of the funding situation, but the reality is we need to figure out either a new system or figure out some way to get more funding for the schools because they're just kind of constantly not prioritized. So I also want to address the broader Northampton community, and I want to say that well, my AP World teacher says all the time that when societies look inward, they start losing progress, and they're seen across history, and I think it can be applied to our city of Northampton. We're losing progress in conversations around education funding, and the fight is not against each other. The root of our funding issues is in the state. I am the co-chair of the Northampton Youth Commission. I'm the chair of our budget subcommittee, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. But we've done a lot of work, a lot of research with our legislators, and at the state level. And while I think advocacy in our city is desperate and important, I think we also need to be directing our energy towards the state because that is where the root of the issue lies. And yeah, the Northampton Youth Commission is excited to be hosting Massachusetts Secretary Patrick Tutwiler, next Tuesday on May 27th. We're also hosting a total of 7 public school districts to kind of talk about the struggles with funding from the state and the funding formulas that the state has when funding public education. So if you're interested in learning more about the state funding and how that impacts Northampton, it will be recorded by Northampton Open Media and put up on their website. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Zinn.
Hi, my name is Megan Zinn. I'm in Ward 3. And I'm speaking to in support of the city budget as proposed. As we all know, there's pressure on the mayor and the council to use more of the stabilization funds to increase the school department's budget. I'm old. I've been around long enough to remember when my kids were at Bridge Street and annual school budget increases were 1% or less. When the schools had to, for example, eliminate gym classes for a period of time. I've also experienced the difference it made in the relative lack of volatility when we began to have stabilization funds ensuring annual increases of at least 4%. I appreciate the fact that the current budget has more than a 5%. I appreciate the fact that the current budget has more than a 5% increase for the schools for next year, but maintains enough in the stabilization funds to ensure we're able to fund our schools sustainably, not just for a year or two, but 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. Is it enough? Absolutely not. But until something changes in state funding formulas and charter school funding, I agree that it's the most responsible strategy.
Thank you. Mike Deno. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. I was actually down here today taking
Your name and city or town.
Mike down in Northampton. Yeah. I was actually down here tonight taking pictures, and I hadn't really planned on speaking here, but I was talking to some people out here, and I thought, well, maybe I'll stay and say my piece. So the thing that I'm interested in is my personal thing is snow plowing. I've lost mailbox after mailbox. It seems the snow plows aren't able to plow Ryan Road without having some kind of it looks like a video game or something. It has actually made the front page of the paper a couple times. Lawrence Road and Ryan Road, all the big main roads. It seems when we have a heavy wet snowstorm, the plows are not able to slow down and not destroy the mailboxes. I think I've even spoken to you about this. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I know that we had a counselor that was supposedly an advocate for her constituents in one of the wards, and she actually got neutered by the room here. So I know that's another political football you guys have to work on. So I thought before I get into the snow season, here we are supposedly in the summer, although it's a pretty cold day today. I thought since I'm down here taking pictures, and I know you guys don't want anyone talking about snow plowing or anything, I thought I would just address it, and maybe we could have the snowplow operators slow down, not destroy the mailboxes. And we could all be, because I talked to the lady at the DPW was running that, and she told me, well, we're sorry it wouldn't happen. And then 2 years later, I had to get another mailbox. She says, well, we're sorry again. And then she explained to me how heavy wet snow destroys mailboxes. And I said, well, thank you for the explanation. Can we slow down? Still hasn't happened. So I thought I'd get in front of it. And you know, because I was down here talking to people, a lot of people aren't happy with the way the city is being run. I just want the snowplow guys to slow down and not destroy my mailboxes. Why don't we just start with that? Okay?
Thank you. Next is Lisa Modenos. Is Lisa here? Yeah.
Applause. Lisa Modinos, Florence. In opposition to opting in, Councillor Clemmer said the risks are real, the damage could be lasting. This isn't a game, the stakes are real. While I disagree with the sky is falling description of opting in, I'd like to speak to the risks, stakes, and lasting damages that result from underfunding public schools. From the Gazette. Underfunding public schools reduces the earning potential of each graduating class by millions of dollars, shrinking the local economy. And underfunding public schools increases costs for police responses and social services, straining the city's budget. But there are costs beyond capital. There is a child at stake. A child now whose needs are not being met, whose brain and body are being harmed now due to lack of supports, and whose potential is being starved. Children are at stake. like the third grader who struggles with social emotional needs and requires supports at school because they're not getting them at home. The middle schooler whose reading delays will profoundly affect their self-esteem and income potential. An autistic kindergartner whose development is being hindered due to a lack of services. A high schooler who should remain in school through age 22, but will be forced to graduate to save the district money. Hundreds of our children have these and other needs in the district. Hundreds. According to DESE, 44% of the students in our district are high needs. Our most vulnerable children's needs are not being met because of the mayor's budget. So there we are then, Councilor Clemmer. This isn't a game. The damages are devastating and the stakes are real, especially for children. Council, public education is under attack. Don't aid the federal agenda by underfunding our schools. Please prioritize children. Otherwise, you are complicit in Trump's attack on public education. And history will remember. We will remember. And lastly, to Mayor Chiara, please choose children over capital and fully fund our schools.
Next is Jean Engel.
My last name's Engel. I'll tell you a little history. No, I won't.
And your name and city or town, please.
Jean Engel. I'm from Northampton. I don't feel safe living in the Salvo house. I don't know how much it costs, but why can't you get all the drug dealers out of the house? You think it's funny? Now it's called the apartment building because he put a sign up there. Why can't you get the drug dealers out? I just want someone to tell me, who do I have to go to? A senator? A congressman? The governor of Massachusetts? I'm tired of this. I've been here 4 years. I fell on the parking lot and I didn't get any help till I yelled out, I need help. I have a fractured hip. I hope it'll get better, but I'm not happy. I've lived next to 2 drug dealers and I don't think people know what it's like. They'll bang on your door and tell you it's not none of your business. Excuse me, use the telephone maybe next time. But there's a girl there. This will be 19 years. She's been a drug dealer. Someone told me take a year. I don't know, the court system is over flooded because I got assaulted with a knife in the building. I have been to court since November, have not had to say a word yet. I don't think it's comfortable. Between Gloucester, Southwick, 13, 10 years, 5 years, even East Hampton, you can't find a place to live. I'm on so many lists. I want out. And I'm telling you, we're all talking about safety. I know the guy from Holyoke's running the show now till August. Get us some help, because I'm tired of living with drug people coming in and out of the building and seeing it and being bombarded during the day between 11 and 11:15. The landlord won't do anything. Jose doesn't do anything. We need help, and I'm tired of this. But I really want to speak at my court. And I'm done. But I thank you, everybody, and especially Rothenberger. I voted for you.
Thank you. Next is Paula Regano. Welcome.
Paula Regano, Northampton. I don't normally speak off the cuff, so bear with me. I just wanted to respond. I recently, I wrote in to City Council and I got a sort of standard response from my Ward 1 City Councilor. And I just wanted to remind everybody here that no layoffs does not equal no job cuts. To be clear, right? When the superintendent was quoted in the Daily Hampshire Gazette as saying there are no layoffs, but apparently we didn't read the next sentence where she said, but there will be reductions in services. Attrition, non-renewals, resignations, retirements that go unfilled means less bodies in a building, less educators in classrooms, less services rendered and available for our students. I believe we have a moral obligation to take care of one another. That means from birth to grave. And that means we take care of our children and we take care of each other. I 1000% support the Medicare for all. It would save this city millions of dollars in health insurance. And I believe we should fully fund our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Andrea Bertini.
Hi, Andrea Bertini, Ward 5. We recently made the very difficult and emotional decision to pull both our kids from Northampton Public Schools. Our kids aren't difficult cases. What they needed in the early grades was peanuts. To finally get the help one of our kids needed after 6 years of, quote, war, only to have the budget constraints and the Director of Student Services unilaterally rip it away months later, without data, without warning, without a plan, and without care or concern for the learning loss, harm, or trauma being caused, and that he has continued to cause us the entire year, was the straw that broke our backs. To know if we stay, it is just going to be worse at the high school, a school with staffing down to the bone that can only offer a discriminatory, exclusionary educational model that denies kids full access to the curriculum and to at least a restrictive environment, to have to send our kids into these isolating and light-crushing spaces with more loss to critical staffing for next year. We know we are lucky. We could try to find another way. I say all of this knowing that our kids are only 2 of the hundreds of kids being failed every day due to the lack of staffing, resources, and funding. So when you're asking the questions about why enrollment is declining, here is our exit interview. We have been so demoralized and discouraged by the way we've been treated, particularly by the Director of Student Services. We are choosing to leave, but it is at great, incredible personal sacrifice, especially since we moved here for the schools. The mayor, city council, and the district administrators, whose goal should be doing what's best for our kids, need to completely change their educational moral compass. They should lead with the goal of doing what is best for our kids educationally and not by picking and choosing which kids to help while choosing to go to war with other families. I'm hopeful there will be a complete paradigm shift in the community, that the administrators and elected officials who are very intentionally and turning a blind eye to our kids who are being harmed will be moved along, be fired, not renewed, not run again, and lose elections, and we will have an opportunity to right the wrongs that have been done to the kids here. It is too late for many of our kids, as evidenced by the mayor's budget and the district's complete lack of resources being allocated to the middle and high school. This is despite the mountains of evidence showing how far behind these kids are in math and reading. The families here deserve better than the mayor's budget and the ensuing cuts to the funding, and deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Nina Shield.
Hi, Nina Shield, Ward 3, Northampton. I was going to skip public comment tonight because honestly, it's like screaming into the void since the lack of interest in constituent concerns is so palpable from all departments of this government. And then I was going to bring up more of the legitimate and reasonable concerns of the residents of Phillip Place in regards to the poorly developed building that will surely be approved by tomorrow's planning board in violation of their own stated requirements for the special permit. But I also want to say something about the schools. In reference to comments that this is always how public schools have been, that sometimes gym classes get cut or this gets cut. Sure, maybe so. I also went to public school in Massachusetts, and I remember when Home Ec and Shop were cut. But shouldn't we demand something better for our children in such a well-resourced town? And we do have the money. The city council just has different priorities. What could be more important than fully funding the schools? In fact, let's overfund the schools. Let's make it rain for the schools. As Dan made reference to earlier, the public school gardens are on the chopping block. The cost is $4,000 a year. The city is replacing its parking meters at the cost of $350,000 this year. It's ordering new police cars at the cost of $300,000 this year. The money is there, but the priorities are clear. The villainy is almost cartoonish, the love of noble developers at the expense of the children of this town. I scream once more into the void, please fund the schools.
Thank you. Next, Meg. Can't read the last name. Robbins.
I have to practice my cursive.
Thank you for the opportunity to address this council. I'm Meg Robbins, Ward 4. I'm going to talk about the FY26 city budget. Mayor Chiara writes in her budget introductory statement that while she is adamant about the need for more state and federal funding, she also tells us, quote, at the same time, we need strong collaboration here at home to explore the best ways to allocate our existing resources and ensure every child receives the best education possible, unquote. Community members have stood at this podium month after month in open comments saying exactly that. Council and school committee meeting after meeting. On this cold spring night, we witnessed another parent, teacher, child, concerned resident, City Hall, many members stand out before this council meeting saying exactly that. We need strong collaboration here at home to explore the best ways to allocate our existing resources to ensure every child receives the best education possible. I extend my gratitude to the very small number of this council who have accepted the opportunity to explore best ways to allocate existing resources with those who offered collaboration. Most didn't. Your essential check and balance body has abrogated the legal power you could have, even a little tiny bit, to opt for an increase in school funding. Our free cash allocation, which we can include as school funding resources, was shifted once again to capital spending. These priorities FY26 to 30 are decided by a small mayoral picked, no minutes, no access, closed doors group who approved funding every single item on that CIP, irregardless of its priority status, except for senior center furniture. Mayor Chiara did not exhibit any interest in collaborating here at home to explore best ways to allocate resources, but she does not define what or where that home is or who lives here. The council said it has plenty of other ways to work with Mayor Chiara to increase school funding if they choose. I'm asking you now to do so. Our children depend on you. Our future depends on you.
Finish your sentence.
I'm not kidding. Ask a teacher. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Mando.
Yeah. Evening.
Name, city, or town, and
I'm the Northampton Mandalorian. I live right here locally in Ward 3. I want to start off by saying, please do not dismiss my words tonight based off my appearance or the fact that I hide my identity under a helmet. We tell children not to judge a book by a cover, right? We need to practice what we preach. Here to speak about the school budget. Fundamentally, I believe the mayor's proposed budget cutting schools is unacceptable. I look around, I see a lot of gray hair, myself included, and the people on Zoom. In the next 30, 40, 50 years, we will all be elderly. We will need doctors, nurses, medical professionals. The children and young adults of today will grow up to become those medical professionals that we all need to take care of us and ourselves and our children. There is no more surefire way to burn the bridge of your future than cutting education for children. Like I said, the children and young adults will grow up to become those leaders and medical professionals that we all need. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Rich Parr.
It's a hard act to follow, though. Thank you. My name is Rich Parr. I live in Florence, Ward 7. I have two kids in the Northampton Public Schools, one in the 6th grade at JFK and one in the 4th at Leeds. I want to echo Tina and Megan's comments on the mayor's budget, sticking to the stability plan, which I think provided some needed historical context for this conversation. The mayor's budget would be the 4th consecutive increase of 5% or more in the city's contribution to the schools. That has not happened here in Northampton in 50 years. I agree with the calls for structural changes in the state funding formula, but until that happens, this budget continues to grow the schools' budget sustainably, I think. And I think that is the discussion we need to have. You know, in regards to the strong budget, 2 of the members of the school committee who voted for that budget said in the debate prior to voting for that budget that they did not think that it was fiscally responsible or sustainable for the city. And they may not have to balance those considerations, but the council does and the mayor does. And so I really appreciate the tough decisions that you guys all have to make. I also want to echo Nathan Chung's comments about the tone of our politics nationally and here locally. As it relates to the school funding issue, I feels like we've learned some of the worst lessons from our national politics right now, where facts are cherry picked and personal attacks are commonplace. I think the level of rhetoric has done a disservice to the city, and I think it's hurt the perception of our schools as well. So in closing, I do public opinion research for my job, surveys and focus groups. I don't have anything on what the citizens of Northampton think about the schools right now, although we did actually do a poll about housing, which is interesting that came up at this meeting tonight. But one thing that I do know from my work across a host of issues is that there are those of us who are able to come to a public meeting like this and who are willing to speak. We often don't reflect the full community, not in terms of demographics or in terms of opinion. It's a real privilege to have the time to come to a meeting like this on a weeknight, and I want the council to please consider the voices of here and also the people who are not able to come to a meeting like this as you consider the budget in the weeks to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I think it's Harold Wolf, maybe. Welcome.
Yes, my name is Harold Wolf and I live in Ward 3. Thank you, councilors, clerk, mayor, for hearing us tonight. I'd like to give a little roll call here. Bay State Village, including Warner Street and Landy Avenue, 8 View Street, 107 Williams Street, 39 Day Avenue, 30 Williams Street, 3 Elm Street. These are some projects that have received the city's approval for housing, none of it affordable housing. In every instance, the projects have been opposed by city residents. In the instances in which the projects have been completed, the negative outcomes predicted by the citizens, such as inadequate stormwater management and flooding, have come to pass. In one case, the property remains vacant. Some projects haven't been completed and never will be. Some projects are being litigated. The city is being sued. It shouldn't be this way. Nobody wants to go to court, but the process is already adversarial. In our city's instance, the presiding judges make the rules fit the case. Juries are told what their findings must be. It's not about justice. Housing is the holy grail, and more housing is the only criteria for judgment. At least in a courtroom, the rules are not arbitrary and you have a fair chance. How is this push for more housing going? Is this emphasis on high density, expensive housing having a positive effect? Right now, Northampton's rental vacancy rate is above the state average. The population of Northampton today is exactly the same as it was 45 years ago when I first moved to the city. It will probably be the same long after I'm gone. But whether the city grows, I'd be happy with that, stays the same. My wish is that the city remains a nice place to live for all residents, new, established, young, and old.
You can finish your sentence. Thank you.
Fund our schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was just me.
James?
Yeah, just me.
Mona?
Thank you. Hello, council. I'm just here.
Your name and city or
Oh, sure. Sorry. James Whitbeck, Ward 4, Northampton here, State Street. Really nice place. Thing is, I don't have a caricature like the Mando himself, but I think that we actually connect with a lot of people around here. I'm the tuba guy that plays on the corner, and I have a lot of friends at Pulaski Park that don't have a place. I've got a place, and it's very privileged. But what I would just like to say in terms of funding the schools, I've been a teacher for over 10 years in the public sector. not only here, but East Hampton, Westfield, and Wilbraham, all across Western Mass. And I can't emphasize enough how much that's impacted my life. And I would say almost 400 students that I've had that I see every day around here. And some of us doing good, some of us not so much. But the difference is, man, you gotta sort out the budget in terms of at least supporting the arts and stuff like that. This is a city that I have lived in for 20 years, and I like to say the whole point was we moved here because of the arts. Like, there's a lot of places around here, and I hate to be comparative. I grew up in Springfield myself, and just looking for a nice place to surround myself with art and everything like that. And thing is, I just wish maybe we could, just focus on the arts. I don't have much to say in terms of, in terms of what he was talking about, sewage management and all those sort of things. And I'm not a very articulate person myself, but just support the arts. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Come on up.
Melissa Makaborski. I live in Northampton. You're going to hear a lot of words from the mayor in her budget presentation tonight. But what do you see? Do you see an $11.6 million surplus and children who are not getting what they need? Do you see people who can't find housing? What do you see in the city? Do you see people that are unhappy with how things are going? What kind of city do you want this to be? Do you want it to be a city for everyone or just a few? I want it to be a city for everyone. Look at what you see. Look at the facts, not the words. There will be a lot of words. Look through them and look at what you see. Vote November 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Hi, my name is Luke Rotello. I'm co-chair of the Communist Party USA in Western Massachusetts, and I'm a candidate for City Council in Ward 5 of Northampton. This austerity budget is an insult to the intelligence, the dignity, and the livelihood of our community. A model of fiscal stability built on the back of our public education system, our teachers, families, and students, is no model of stability at all. A model for democracy where our mayor disregards the legitimacy of our school committee and our council majority refuses to act as a check on her administration is no way to stand up to the MAGA movement. I remember a meeting a few months ago where Councillor Clemmer demanded, in lieu of funding public education, that our educators find a way to, quote, teach differently. We have a more serious proposal, which is apparently also a radical idea. Let's govern differently. It is long past time to put the needs of educators, families, students, workers, and tenants first. We have a crisis of not of cash, but of priorities. It is long past time for a change. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Welcome. Your name and city or town, please.
I'm Jake Gallant, Northampton. I'm actually not sure what ward. I'm like on a boundary. I need to figure that out. But I just moved recently. I am a paraeducator at Northampton High School, and I want to echo what everyone has said about funding the schools more. It's really sad that year after year we have to have this fight, and students are really impacted by it because they see how the town is like not funding their schools, and it makes them feel depressed about going to school. So we need to stop this and instead make students feel happy to be going to school, to know that they are having like the money put aside so that they can have a good experience there. And it's just, we desperately need more money, and it's just really sad. Sorry. Goodbye.
Thank you. Next on Zoom is Din.
There we go.
Hi, good evening. I'm Jennifer James. I'm in Ward 2. I would like to speak to two things specifically for the high school. I would like to speak in support of the budget being raised to support the strong model. I know that probably won't happen, but I still want to speak to that. I wonder if you are sitting on the council and you love humanities and freedom of thought, if maybe you could put that into unwavering support of the return of an adequate number of humanities faculty to the high school you drive by every day, just so that our intrepid Northampton High School teachers can give the best foundation for critical thinking possible. We currently do not have the adequate number of humanities funding, and that was cut last year, and it's not going to be replaced. Northampton High School students are already voters. I also want you to consider the sharp loss of the sole technology support provider at Northampton High School. Without her, there will be no technology support staff in the high school building for anyone, including those who deeply need translation to teach or learn, not for teachers that need tech support just to create their lectures, or for anyone in the building. I know her position isn't technically being cut, but it is practically disappearing from the high school where that resource is deeply needed. I really hope that you'll consider the opinions that you're hearing about supporting the schools. And I would like to say, just as much as somebody who supports maintaining the lower budget, feeling that they, as a speaker, represent people who aren't attending the meetings, because it is a huge it's a huge thing to have the ability to come to these meetings, but I would like you to consider all the families who are aware of the loss of services and the lack of support, even just in the high school itself, and parents.
That was time. If you could finish your sentence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to announcements from councilors and the mayor. Councilor Perry.
Alrighty. Let's go back over here. Well, this is one of my favorite times of the year. Whereas Jay Whitbeck was saying, it's time for arts to fill our streets. Salsa in the EJ Gare Plaza starts June 1st to August 31st. Bands of Brewster's coming back starting June 5th. And one of my favorites is Summer on Strong. Starts May 29th with my good friend Nate Martell, and a full schedule going from Thursday to Sunday every week. So get out there, enjoy some music, support your local businesses, and be a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Councilor Maori.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to congratulate the Ultimate team at the high school for their 10th year of pulling off the Pioneer Valley Invitational that hosts 91 players, 10 Canadian teams, 66 teams overall, 20 playing fields. It's a huge undertaking, and it is so impressive to see this is all volunteer run. It's a fundraiser for the Ultimate teams, but also they give a donation to a peace organization. And to see all these volunteers working together, it's a beautiful thing. It's very intense, and it's making Northampton kind of a destination spot every year. So I just wanted to to acknowledge them and congratulate them, and also to congratulate the boys varsity team for pulling at the last minute a win over an Amherst last night on senior night. So congratulations, team.
Thanks. Councilor Clemmer.
Thanks. Yesterday I went to the ribbon cutting for 23 Laurel, which is affordable housing in Ward 2. They finished all the units in just a little bit over a year, which is absolutely amazing. Landscaping and everything, and a playground. And there's going to be rent-based income units, some below market, and they're also accessible. And it's just a beautiful place. So if you get a chance and you're up in Ward 2, you should walk through there and see what they did. Very impressive. And there's going to be 20 more families up there now that have a nice new home to live in.
Councilor Labarge.
Yes. On May 26th, on a Monday, Florence is having their Memorial Day parade. Take off. You have to be at Trinity Road Park between 9:30 and 9:45. Please join us. It is just an absolutely beautiful memorial for all our veterans who served our country and people now who are retired and living with a memory of the lost ones that they've loved and the ones that have come back home. So please join our village of Florence on the Memorial Day parade. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dove. Councilor Dove.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that recently I became the chair of the Ordinance Review Committee, along with Councilor Perry as the vice chair and Stan Moulton and two members of the public. We recently formed the Ordinance Review Committee, and our next meeting is on Wednesday, June 11th at 6 p.m. And I just wanted to invite anyone from the public, people in the city who have any ideas about ordinances that you think need to be looked at in the city, suggestions for changes to be made, or perhaps an ordinance that you think doesn't even need to exist. Just let us know. So yeah, Wednesday, June 11th. Thanks.
Thanks. I have an announcement, a reminder that we have moved our Thursday, June 19th meeting. A council meeting has been rescheduled to Wednesday, June 18th to avoid the Juneteenth holiday. Also, the free Florence Summer Concert Series runs every Thursday from 6:30 to 8 p.m. It's on the Florence Civic Center lawn. It's May 29th to September 4th this year, and it kicks off on May 29th with the Northampton High School Band and the Northamptones with a Caravan Kitchen food truck. And you can see the full lineup at florencemass.com. I'm also holding office hours coming up Tuesday, June 3rd from 6 to 7:30 at the Lilly Library. That's with Ward 5 School Committee member Ann Hennessy. And then Thursday, June 5th from 2:30 to 4:30 p.m. at the City Council office in City Hall. Other announcements? Mayor Shara.
Good evening. You guys covered a lot of them, but just two more. In addition to the parade on Monday, thank you, Councilor Labarge, there's also the Leeds Memorial Day ceremony that happens the day before on Sunday, May 25th at 1 p.m. And that's at the Leeds Memorial Park, which is across from the Leeds Elementary School. So it's 1 p.m. on Sunday. And also, I just want to tell people about the 31st annual Forbes Garden Tour. That's on June 14th and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., rain or shine. And you can get tickets to that by going to the Friends of Forbes section on the Forbes site, which is forbeslibrary.org. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none. How's the council doing? Do we need a recess?
Brief recess, please.
Okay. We'll do 8 minutes. We'll come back at 8 o'clock.
All right.
Support the arts, go to Strange Street.
Go, Jay. Strange here? Ryan, new chef at the Horse?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Northampton City Council. Next on our agenda is presentations, and we have a presentation from Mayor Shara. This is the fiscal year 2026 budget message. Welcome, Mayor Shara.
Thank you. Good evening again, counselors. Get all settled in here. Thank you to those who clearly have already read this budget message. There are many words, as was noted, and gave a little bit of a preview, but I am going to read it now. So this is to the honorable members of the City Council. And I also want to thank the department heads that are here, and also the public, of course, who are here. I submit for your consideration and approval the proposed $145,301,999 fiscal year 2026 budget for the City of Northampton in accordance with Article 7, Section 7.3 of our charter. The budget is comprised of $129,543,130 general fund, combined with 4 enterprise funds budgets for water at $6,945,000, sewer, $6,177,500, solid waste at $639,883, and stormwater and flood control, which is $1,996,486. This budget proposal represents a 4.8% increase from the current FY25 City of Northampton budget that ends with the fiscal year on June 30th, 2025. The FY26 budget is the final budget of my first term as mayor of Northampton. When I first took office in January of 2022, I made commitments to responsibly manage the city's finances and taxpayer dollars, provide as much support for our public schools as possible, maintain critical city services and infrastructure, support our hardworking civil servants, take necessary action on climate in accordance with the Sustainable Northampton Comprehensive Plan, and build out the Division of Community Care as a new model of public safety. This budget is not just numbers on a page. It is how I, in collaboration with our department heads and finance team, have used the resources available to uphold these commitments to meet the needs and to live up to the shared values of our community. I am proud of what the city has achieved with discipline, compassion, and robust collaboration. Public school funding has increased greatly. Our climate goals are operational and advancing. The Division of Community Care is delivering results, helping over 1,000 individuals. And through careful, transparent stewardship, we have kept our city on solid financial ground. These investments are deliberate, thoughtful, and rooted in a long-term vision for Northampton's success. This budget delivers on that vision, and it reflects Northampton's shared values, equity, resilience, and responsibility, and channels them into action. In uncertain times, my commitment is to lead with steadiness, transparency, and respect for every resident. This is how we protect what makes Northampton strong. As I write this budget message, I can't ignore headline after headline of uncertainty and turmoil in the country and around the world that flash past. The world we inhabit today is more volatile than it was in January 2022, and back then we were still in the declared emergency of the pandemic. The level of anxiety in Northampton is palpably high because national instability, economic uncertainty, and deliberate attacks on public institutions are not abstractions. They are daily realities that shape what is possible for our city. Community members fear they or loved ones will be picked up by federal agents. Rights are being stripped, gender-affirming and reproductive care restrictions are growing, Medicaid cuts are being threatened, history, research, and the identities of people are being erased. Environmental regulations and protections are being scrapped, and nascent gains towards addressing the climate crisis are rolling very quickly backwards. The public health system is being undermined from within by leaders who spout misinformation. Threats, bluster, and toying with policies, laws, and services that are relied on for survival are daily occurrences. The federal government has begun canceling grants to nonprofits and state and local governments. In Massachusetts, federal funds make up about 25% of the state's budget revenue. In addition, the Commonwealth receives another $5 billion in federal grants outside of the budget, which help support programs and services throughout the state. We don't know yet how much of this critical funding will ultimately be cut. or how deeply it will impact our local funding. However, as reflected in this budget, the city has already lost some grant funding that supported Northampton's Department of Health and Human Services. It feels like every day we learn more about funds that have been stable and dependable being pulled from organizations and agencies that provide essential services and support the well-being of our community. The loss to these programs, coupled with the economic turmoil, is going to increase needs in already stretched areas like food security, housing supports, mental health resources, and substance use care. We anticipate that needs, which are already growing, will compound. One indicator of this is that the number of people experiencing houselessness in the United States on the annual single night count in 2024 was the highest ever recorded. Preliminary reports from the count for 2025 for our county show a 90% increase in unhoused individuals throughout Hampshire County over the last year. Another indicator is that people accessing local food banks like the Northampton Survival Center are increasing again after leveling off post-pandemic, while the U.S. Department of Agriculture has canceled $440,000 worth of funding to the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts. Additionally, the broader economy is teetering as sharp, sudden, and shifting tariffs have jeopardized America's trading relationship with the rest of the world. The chaos has the potential to impact the local economy and, in turn, the municipal budget. Yet, we still have a legal obligation to implement a budget at the beginning of the fiscal year using our best estimates for revenue and spending, and ensure by the end of that fiscal year that the budget is balanced. Unlike the federal government, we can't run annual deficits, we can't print money, and we can't use fuzzy math. Northampton uses fiscal management principles guided by the Commonwealth's budget experts at the Division of Local Services, which are designed to help cities anticipate and manage unexpected yet inevitable economic disruptions and emergencies. To briefly summarize, we use cautious budget estimates that aim to generate an annual surplus, then the surplus is used to maintain reserve funds and support immediate capital needs. Reserves are critical not only for emergencies, large and small, but also to support financing for large essential capital projects. Without well-managed reserves, emergencies will wreak havoc on city services, and critical infrastructure maintenance will get deferred, leading to costly problems in the future. Northampton's fiscal strategy also seeks to overcome the conservative cap on property tax revenue from Proposition 2.5. I want to be as clear as possible. Under the Proposition 2.5 cap, the city's revenue cannot keep up with covering continually rising costs. We constantly face a difficult choice: either raise property taxes beyond the cap through voter-approved overrides, or reject these periodic overrides and make deep, across-the-board cuts to essential services. The approach that has best addressed rising costs and allowed Northampton to rise above the cap is the Fiscal Stability Plan that began in 2013 and has guided every budget that I've submitted. The linchpin in the Fiscal Stability Plan is the Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund. Most reserve funds support finite capital projects or emergencies with one-time funding sources. The Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund provides one-time fund transfers that temporarily support inevitable rising recurring expenses of our operating costs until the next property tax override. Voter approval of periodic overrides is essential to the success of the plan, as it provides sustainable recurring revenue to cover rising operating costs, replenishes the Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund, and also supports long-term budget planning. By using the fund to space out overrides over several years, we increase the likelihood of continued voter support. The elements of the Fiscal Stability Plan were presented to voters during the override referendums of 2013 and 2020. With the passage of these overrides, Northampton voters have effectively ratified the plan. I appreciate that not all residents agree with or feel they can afford to periodically raise taxes to support schools and city services. Ultimately, the continuation of the Fiscal Stability Plan and its reliance on periodic overrides rests on the judgment of Northampton voters. We have been anticipating the next override referendum to be scheduled ahead of the FY 2027 budget. Though unexpected changes in our revenue streams and our spending needs can always prompt a reassessment, as was the case last year. Education, the largest component of the city budget, has been greatly supported by the Fiscal Stability Plan. In the 13 years since the beginning of the plan, the city's direct general fund contribution to the Northampton Public Schools has had an average annual increase of 4.77%. In the previous 13 years before the plan, the average increase was 2.1%, included multiple years where the increase was less than 1%. No municipal plan alone can solve all of the challenges of education funding without effective partnership from the state and federal government. However, the Fiscal Stability Plan has strengthened our ability to invest in the future of our children and our city by promoting stable budgeting and increasing revenues through overrides. Moving on to revenues. The city's total available new revenue for FY26 is $4,968,742. Additionally, we are using $1,403,757 from the Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund to balance the budget. Local taxes, which are 67.6% of the city's revenue, are estimated at $87,570,940. Excuse me. Of that total, real estate and personal property tax revenue make up 93% of our local taxes, or $81,235,085. This includes the 2.5% increase to property tax allowed under Proposition 2.5 and new growth. New growth comes from the new construction, renovations, and other property tax increases. While we aim to meet this estimate, new construction depends heavily on the broader economy as well as the cost and availability of materials. To create more revenue capacity, this budget aggressively pushes many of our revenue estimates higher this year. This is a strategic risk, particularly with the great uncertainty in the economy, but we are taking it to sustain the increases to MPS provided throughout FY25 that were stated would be recurring, and to support additions to MPS and public safety in the FY26 budget. One of the large increases to our revenue estimates is motor vehicle excise tax, which is increasing by $355,000. Or a total of $3.25 million. This increase is an example of the strategic risks we are taking, as it's higher than the 3-year average, though we anticipate a stronger than usual fourth quarter collection due to the widely reported surge in pre-tariff car purchases. Given the ongoing uncertainty around tariffs, we will closely monitor any fluctuations in this revenue stream throughout FY26. Hotel motel excise tax revenue is increasing by 11.43%, or $100,000, to the total of $975,000. And meals tax revenue is increasing by 3.17%, or $23,000, to a total of $748,000. Cannabis revenue, which, like other excise tax revenue, goes into the general fund to benefit all city and school services, had dropped annually for the 3 years after its first full year in FY 2020. In FY 2024, it began to reverse the trend and has continued to climb back up. For FY 26, we are increasing the revenue estimate by 22.12% to $900,000. Many charges for services are increasing significantly, including parking meter receipts at 11.37%. Parking lot revenue, 21.21%. Parking kiosk receipts, 32.43%. Park mobile revenue, 58.28%. And ambulance services at 13.3%. These 5 lines represent a total of $658,000 in additional revenue. The largest portion of local charges for services is the pass-through for Smith Vocational and Agricultural High School for their out-of-district student tuition. It is increasing by $426,624 in FY26, and these funds go directly to Smith Voc to support its budget. For FY26, state aid makes up 13.6% of the general fund and is estimated at $16,183,950, which excludes the offsets. And this is based on the cherry sheet figures from the House version of the state budget. This includes a $411,150 increase in Chapter 70 school aid, reflecting a doubling of the per student rate from $75 in the governor's budget proposal to $150 in the House version. However, the state also increased Northampton's required net school spending by $1,356,417. After accounting for state assessments charged to the city, the net increase in all state aid from FY26 is $431,899. We will continue to monitor the state budget as it moves through the conference committee and remain hopeful that our estimated aid will not be significantly decreased or reduced. Licenses and permits, which comprise 1.13% of the operating budget, are increasing overall by 15.3% for an additional $194,446 in revenue. The largest increases in this category are building, plumbing, wire, and periodic inspection permits, increasing by 18.5%, 27.2%, 16%, and 45.6%, respectively. Fines and forfeits are increasing by 22.2%, with an increase to the parking ticket revenue of $138,260. The largest increase to estimated revenue is from investment income, which has enjoyed strong performance since our treasurer astutely moved city funds into a new investment vehicle tied to the Secure Overnight Financing Rate, or SOFR. Before FY23, the city earned an annual average of about $200,000 from investment income. After moving into the SOFR account in the third quarter of FY23, that number jumped to $1.1 million and then to $2.6 million in FY24. While we haven't closed the books on FY25 yet, investment income continues to come in strong. Investment income is tied to interest rates and is an inherently volatile revenue source. Assuming it can be relied on to balance the budget carries a risk, particularly in an unstable economy. Additionally, this account replaced the previous type for benchmarking interest rates and could itself be discontinued or changed in the future. Nevertheless, this is another example of a strategic risk we have chosen to take, as we are now using $2,078,300 estimate for FY26 investment income, reflecting a 1,065.6% increase. Moving on to expenditures, starting with education, the largest expenditure piece of the pie. Every conversation about school funding is personal to me. I talk with students, I talk with caregivers, I hear directly from educators who are doing the work every day. I want the very same thing for Northampton's children to have the very best possible education supported by the resources they need to succeed. I see dedicated educators and administrators working hard to support our students, often in challenging circumstances and facing the same structural issues as so many districts across the Commonwealth. I am proud of the progress Northampton schools continue to make, and I believe in the strength and the potential of our public education system. Each year, the city must carefully balance limited resources with wide-ranging needs, not only in our public schools, but across every department serving Northampton. Public education represents the largest portion of the direct general fund expenditures at 42.99%. When we include the additional education costs borne by the general fund, such as charter school sending, out-of-district school choice tuition, and fixed employee benefits for insurance and retirement, the total share of the general fund devoted to education rises to 54.63%. In FY26, MPS funding from the general fund will increase to $43,894,984 from $41,455,340 in FY25. This is a $2.44 million increase. This $2.44 million increase reflects how deeply we value our schools and how carefully we balance the rest of the city's obligations. Initial budget projections made in January promised at least a 4% increase for MPS. And as I said at the April 10th, 2025 school committee meeting, my final budget will provide every possible dollar we can responsibly and sustainably direct to the Northampton Public Schools. The city's base contribution increased by 6.3% over the FY25 budget. However, when factoring in other sources of the annual appropriation in addition to the general fund, which are the amount of last year's Medicaid reimbursement from the new Special Education Stabilization Fund and the second year of the Smith College gift, the overall increase is 5.88%. If the school committee and city council vote during the year to allocate the remaining annual amount from the Special Education Stabilization Fund, the total increase for MPS will be 6.3%. In addition to the direct increase to the MPS budget, I'm also requesting that the City Council approve replenishing the Special Education Stabilization Fund using nearly $300,000 of unspent funds in the free cash account. This will replenish the fund to the maximum amount allowed under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 13E, which is 2% of net school spending estimated for FY25. The intention of the school committee and the City Council expressed in their votes last year while establishing the fund has been to maintain the fund using federal Medicaid reimbursements, which to date have been fairly consistent. However, with the current federal administration and Congress exploring major Medicaid cuts for the first time, that source could be at risk. Regardless of any federal decisions about Medicaid, the FY26 budget will include an initial $209,175 appropriation to MPS from the Special Education Stabilization Fund, which will allow for an additional $140,825 from the fund to reach the maximum annual appropriation of $350,000 under the requirements of the fund. The Northampton Public Schools section of this budget book includes the $46,610,094 budget that was voted by the school committee and submitted to the mayor's office, referred to as the, quote, strong budget. The requested amount of $5,154,750 is a 12.43% increase from the FY25 appropriation to MPS. Unfortunately, it is not possible to build a fiscally responsible budget based on this request. And some of the school committee members who voted for the recommendation even acknowledged that in practice it would be fiscally irresponsible. The requested increase, combined with the $1.53 million rise in fixed employee benefit costs, exceeds the city's total new revenue for FY26, even after including the withdrawal from the Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund and before accounting for any other city department. We were able to reach the $43.9 million appropriation amount by stretching the budget in every way conceivable within the realm of responsibility. This was done by further limiting spending increases in other departments, aggressively adjusting revenue estimates upwards, as we just detailed, and again by tapping the Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund for a third year in a row. There is no change to our override timeline under the Fiscal Stability Plan, which anticipates a $3 million override for FY27, with the next override not expected until FY 2031. Accommodating a 12.43% increase for MPS would have required voter approval of a $5 million override this spring, twice the size of the 2020 override, followed by an additional $4 million override 4 years later. School financing has been extremely challenging since the pandemic, when, to cover the costs of increased hiring and compensation, MPS overly relied on one-time federal pandemic relief funds and spent down the School Choice Reserve Fund, which had peaked at $4 million in 2020. In my first budget message in May 2022, I said of the MPS budget, quote, "The use of reserves, being school choice, greater than incoming revenue and one-time federal funds to such a degree will create a gap that will exceed the city's capacity to raise additional revenue to cover it. And I'm concerned about our ability to maintain our educational programs and staffing at current levels in near future years." End quote. Higher costs combined with the exhaustion of one-time funding sources led to widening NPS shortfalls in FY24 and in FY25. The city has responded with record funding increases using other budgetary adjustments and transfers from the Fiscal Stability Stabilization Fund. This will be the fourth consecutive fiscal year of increases in the city's direct contribution to MPS of at least 5%, which has not happened in the previous 50 years. From FY 2022, when I entered this office, through the upcoming FY 26, the city's annual direct contribution to MPS will have increased by $10,433,088, or by 31% in 4 years. Additionally, MPS's annual net school spending, which encompasses both direct spending and indirect spending, such as employee benefits, in FY25 is 144% of the state's determined minimum. This is the highest such percentage for MPS recorded by the state's Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, DESE, going back to FY 1993. Our increased spending for MPS has mitigated, but unfortunately has not eliminated, the need for classroom staff level reductions. Though during this period, some positions were also restored and were created. From FY23 through the upcoming FY26, the net overall staff position reduction will be about 12, with a net reduction in teaching positions of about 11, and a net increase in paraeducator positions of about 4. Most of these reductions were through attrition and were through retirements. Despite the staffing level changes, because of declining enrollment, teacher-student ratios and teacher-paraeducator-student ratios have continued to improve over the last several years. Going back to FY 2018, the student-teacher ratio was 9.8 to 1 and declined to 8.8 to 1 in FY 22. In FY 25, it was down 8.5 to 1. Using the projected enrollment for FY 26, which may still change before the school year starts, the ratio will be 8.15 students to 1 educator. While including paraeducators, the student-to-staff ratio was 7.1 to 1 in FY 2018, 6.05 to 1 in FY 22, and 5.8 to 1 in FY 25, with an FY 26 projection of 5.5 students to 1 educator. I want to make sure to note that these numbers differ from those compiled by DESE because DESE appears to use a narrower definition of what constitutes a teacher than MPS does when we are counting staff and when we're calculating our ratios. Of course, this is just data, and it's not people's lived experiences. I know that students and educators in Northampton and across the country are facing real challenges. Meanwhile, public education is under attack like never before by the federal administration. There's a great deal of work ahead to push for more support from both the state and federal governments. At the same time, we need strong collaboration here at home to explore the best ways to allocate our existing resources and ensure every child receives the best education possible. We must keep pushing the Commonwealth to do more. Once again, school districts across Massachusetts are facing cuts, and cities and towns are having the same stressful conversations about how to meet the needs of all municipal services with huge increases under Prop 2.5. Northampton's Chapter 70 state aid only accounts for 16% of its actual net school spending for the Northampton Public Schools. This has fallen since the 1993 Education Reform Act, when it was 33%. In the past 25 years, Chapter 70 state aid has increased only 13.3%. In that same time, required net school spending has increased by 75.8%, and our actual net school spending in Northampton has increased by 136.7%. I will continue to say emphatically that we also need charter school funding reform. The FY26 House budget shows Northampton's charter school sending tuition has crossed the $3 million mark at $1,141,217, and with the charter reimbursement being $529,356. Since FY 2017, $23.5 million from the general fund have gone to charter school sending tuition. With the approved expansion of the Pioneer Valley Chinese Immersion Charter School by 100 seats and the approval for the Pioneer Valley Performing Arts Charter School to reduce their sending districts from 34 to 18, with Northampton as one of the 18, we can expect the amount of students and general fund revenue leaving for charter schools will increase. This flawed funding formula disproportionately impacts municipalities like Northampton that have multiple charter schools around them that pull district students. Those funds are urgently needed in our local district, where rising costs and growing needs have outpaced stagnant Chapter 70 aid. I do want to thank Senator Joe Comerford and Representative Lindsay Sabadosa, who have been pushing incredibly hard for the needed reforms to the structural problem of Chapter 70. I also want to thank the Northampton High School students who've been organizing and calling for more state funding. And you heard from Amelia tonight, who's been leading on that. It has been so powerful to see them standing up here and at the State House, creating an advocacy video and working to bring Secretary of Education Patrick Tutwiler to Northampton to hear directly from us and neighboring districts about the challenges of increasing needs and skyrocketing costs without increased state funding to help districts cover them. We must stand with our students and demand that the Commonwealth step up and fix its funding schemes that are sending districts across the Commonwealth into deficits and cuts. The other school district in Northampton, Smith Vocational and Agricultural High School, is receiving a 4% increase in the city's appropriation towards its $11,794,397 budget. The remaining budget of $10,015,315 is made up of out-of-district student tuition paid by the sending communities. These funds, as I said, are a pass-through in the city budget. The per-student cost is increasing from $20,847, as I said, in FY25 to $21,693 in FY26. The out-of-district tuition is set by DESE, and it is estimated that a total of 589 students will attend Smith Voc in the fall, and Northampton students will make up 23% of the student body. Moving on to employee benefits. Health insurance is the second largest expenditure after education, and it is the largest fixed cost to the general fund. For FY26, it totals $15.59 million, an increase of $1.4 million, and uses 22% of the new revenue coming into the city. The most subscribed plan is Health New England, which increased by 10.5%. And with the other plans, the total percent increase is 9.88%. The percent split for the monthly premium cost between the City of Northampton and employees for HMOs has remained 80% to 20% for the last 19 years. And PPOs have been a 50-50 split for the last 15 years. Employee benefits as a whole are $25,966,783 and comprise 20% of the budget. Moving on to general government. In general government, there are mostly minimal increases under 3%, with 2 departments seeing decreases. Notably, the city clerk's office was able to do some restructuring, which resulted in the replacement of a vacant full-time position with a part-time records position. Information Technology Services, ITS, continues to find ways to optimize and consolidate systems and infrastructure, resulting in savings, while also ensuring that all technology expenses are accurately budgeted. ITS covers all technology services and needs for city departments and MPS, which are continuously growing and represents only 1.6% of the budget. Priorities have included upgrading cyber and network security and ensuring backup and redundancy on critical systems. There is a decrease in the personnel services, PS lines, total due to change in positions. However, there's an increase in ITS's operations and maintenance, OM lines, to account for increases such as further consolidation into IPS, software licensing increases, cybersecurity training, email encryption, backup solutions, firewall maintenance, and increases in telecommunication services. This includes the necessary move to a new computer-aided dispatch record management system, which is CAD RMS system, for fire rescue and police, with the discontinuation of the previous system. Moving on to climate action and project administration. CAPA embodies Northampton's commitment to sustainability, resilience, and efficient governance. In its first full year at capacity, CAPA has delivered tangible results by securing and implementing over $650,000 in energy efficiency projects, restoring solar PV production and associated renewable energy credits, reducing municipal energy use by 5.3%, and driving down public EV charging costs while ensuring financial sustainability. Beyond climate metrics, CAPA's work reflects a broader ethic, bringing project management discipline to city operations, ensuring resources are spent wisely, and every opportunity for carbon reduction and cost savings is captured. Looking ahead, CAPA is not only advancing Northampton's ambitious decarbonization goals, but is also helping modernize how city projects are scoped, procured, and executed. Whether developing a shared municipal vehicle pool, rebalancing city building control systems for maximum efficiency and energy savings, or streamlining procurement processes for better transparency and accountability, I have challenged CAPA to set a high standard for how Northampton prepares for a changing climate while delivering value to residents. The PS budget increase is higher as it reflects increases for the finalized personnel changes, which occurred after the FY25 budget was set, and FY26 step increases. The OM budget increase helps support the implementation and maintenance of the new vehicle pool. For public safety, there has been an ongoing conversation about the increase in call volume that public safety has been experiencing since the latter part of the pandemic, in particular in fire rescue calls. I have flagged this in the last two budget messages and have been working closely with Chief Pelis and Assistant Chief Lemberg to build towards sustainably addressing the needs for additional staffing. In FY26, we're adding 8 firefighter positions to the fire rescue budget. The department is applying for a FEMA grant that, if awarded for any or all of those 8 positions, would fund the first 3 years of employment. We expect to hear the outcome in the fall. We have budgeted for the position starting in October 2025 in case the grant is not released by the federal administration or it is not successful. I thank the Fire Rescue Department for its collaboration as we work to meet rising demands, and I am grateful that these additional hires will provide the needed staffing. As call volumes increase, the Public Safety Communication Center, or dispatch, must also keep pace with the demands of its 24-hour operations. Their work is already high pressure and demanding, and it becomes even more challenging when a dispatcher must cover a double shift due to an absence. To help manage the increased call volume and maintain adequate staffing levels, the FY26 budget includes funding for an additional dispatcher position. There is a decrease in the Northampton Police Department MPD budget due to the hiring, and remaining fully staffed has continued to be a challenge for MPD. The ability to hire student officers to begin training for anticipated vacancies has significantly shortened the time positions remain vacant and has resulted in reduced overtime costs needed to fill shifts to meet minimum staffing levels. In the building department, which is part of public safety, bless you, building department has an increase for a part-time building inspector to help meet the expanded inspection requirements under the 10th edition of the State Building Code. This update now mandates additional inspections for all short-term rentals. With this change, we anticipate an increase in inspections and a corresponding rise in department revenue. Moving on to Health and Human Services. The Department of Health and Human Services has had impressive success in securing and maintaining grant funding. However, the current federal attacks on public health funding are hitting the department with significant cuts in state and federal grants. The Division of Community Care, DCC, has benefited from substantial support from the state's Equitable Approaches to Public Safety EAPS grant. While this year's funding was not included in the House version of the budget, it remains in the Senate version, and we are working closely with our legislative delegation to advocate for its preservation. Given this uncertainty, the FY26 budget does not fund 7 currently vacant DCC positions. These roles were originally planned to expand hours and coverage as funding allowed. In the meantime, our priority is to sustain the strong level of service that stakeholders have come to expect and rely upon from the DCC while we continue to pursue stable long-term support for this essential program. DHHS coordinates regional emergency preparedness planning for Hampshire County through the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Grant. Unfortunately, we've learned that we are losing $121,000 from this grant, which is forcing budget adjustments, including freezing a vacant public health nurse position. Additionally, a Bureau of Infectious Disease and Laboratory Sciences grant, which has supported infectious disease monitoring, public health nursing, and community vaccine clinics, has been canceled, and the loss of $283,000 will impact our ability to provide these services to protect public health. These are incredibly devastating losses for DHHS, and I commend Commissioner O'Leary and the DHHS team for their resilience and their dedication to harm reduction, improving and safeguarding public health, and equitably meeting community needs during this very challenging time. For those of you who are following along the book, if you'll allow me to go off book for a moment, I have something to add, which I think will highlight the changing and mercurial time that we are in. So just on Friday, after this budget was printed, it was reported that a federal judge granted a preliminary injunction pausing an $11 billion cuts in public health departments. So with that injunction, there's a possibility that we will get that BIDL's $283,000 grant back. So we are hopeful and waiting to see if that happens. But again, these things are moving constantly all the time. So that was just Friday afternoon that was reported. Moving on to senior services. Senior services continues to welcome new members and has seen an increase in the average number of members using the Senior Center daily as they expand programs and services to meet the needs and interests of Northampton's older adults. In order to increase funding for transportation services, other operations and maintenance lines were reduced, leaving the Senior Center services budget to increase by 2.67%. Veteran services is increasing by $138,026 or 22.23%. This is due in great part to an increase in the use of benefits for Northampton veterans after decreasing for the last 8 years. The number of communities served by the Central Hampshire Veteran Services District has increased by 2 to 14 communities with the addition of Hatfield and Granby. The Commonwealth's Chapter 115 Veterans Benefits Program provides a 75% reimbursement to communities with the potential for 100% reimbursement for houseless veterans. Each community in the district pays its own veterans benefits and receives direct reimbursement from the state. Moving on to culture and recreation. The 4 culture and recreational services departments, Forbes and Lilly Libraries, Parks and Recreation, and Arts and Culture are all seeing budget increases of 2.5% or less. These departments play a vital role in enriching our community and providing valuable services to residents of all ages. I want to draw attention to the cuts to the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS, by executive order in March by the Trump administration. These cuts threaten to eliminate statewide library services that our local libraries provide. These include databases, interlibrary loan, e-library services, summer reading programs, and early literacy development, and programs to increase access for people with vision loss. In April, I joined mayors and city officials across the Commonwealth in calling on the Massachusetts congressional delegation to fight for this very small but critical federal funding. For the Department of Public Works, the DPW, we are working through collective bargaining to address ongoing staffing shortages that have made it increasingly difficult to meet service demands. I know how hard Director LaScalia and her limited team are working to address road conditions following the especially tough winter that we've had, while also keeping up with maintenance and operations across all DPW divisions. The cost for skilled labor has rapidly increased due to shortages of qualified personnel and strong competition from the private sector. As we work to rebuild the DPW staff as quickly as possible and to remain competitive in this tight labor market, We will not be funding 4 positions this year, 2 in the general fund and 1 in water enterprise and 1 in the sewer enterprise. The 4 enterprise funds, water, sewer, solid waste, and stormwater and flood control, are mostly level funded and self-sustaining. The reserves in the funds will be used to support the operational and capital project budgets for each utility. As the cost of trash and compost disposal have risen considerably, the solid waste enterprise is continuing to operate at a small deficit, which is being filled by the retained earnings. There are no water and sewer usage rates or base charge increases in FY26. Coca-Cola had represented 25% of the water and sewer enterprise revenue. At this point, with their greatly reduced operations, they are down to approximately 10% of the revenue in those enterprises. Coca-Cola's latest projected termination of operations in Northampton is at the end of the calendar year 2025. The base rate fees that were increased in FY24 are what is keeping the water and sewer enterprises balanced, as there has not been an increase in usage rates since 2020. Along with our federal and state legislators and the state's Executive Office of Economic Development, we continue to advocate for a sale of the building to another user that will support our enterprise funds. The City of Northampton has 13 collective bargaining agreements, 7 covering city employees and 6 for school employees. Each is negotiated in good faith, reflecting a commitment to fair wages, benefits, and working conditions for the people who deliver essential services to Northampton every day. Collective bargaining is not just a legal requirement. It is an important process that ensures the city and its workforce work in partnership to meet community needs. All city collective bargaining agreements are being negotiated this year. Once these agreements are in place, it is the city's responsibility to support and fund them, which the FY26 budget will fulfill. This budget focuses on the fundamentals, providing sustainable funding for public education, maintaining essential services, supporting staff, managing within Proposition 2.5, and protecting the city's long-term financial stability. It fulfills Northampton's obligations while making disciplined choices that reflect real financial constraints. Not every department is highlighted in this message, as I focused on those with the most significant changes. However, every department and both school districts in Northampton provide nexus to the functioning and the well-being of our city. I am deeply grateful for their daily hard work, care, and their dedication. The process that city departments go through for creating their next fiscal year budget, while concentrated from January to May, is actually a continual process throughout the year. I meet with most department heads at least monthly, and they communicate often with the finance director. We regularly discuss staffing, operational needs, challenges, and overall performance, not just to stay on budget for the year, but to refine it and to engage in longer-term planning. Together, we aim to address needs sustainably, using the resources available as effectively as possible. I'm grateful for their professionalism and commitment to the city and that of their hardworking staff. To serve the city of Northampton alongside them is the great privilege of my position, and I thank them. Special thanks to the mayor's office staff, mayoral assistant, and LGBTQIA+ executive office liaison, Sydney Fahey, COVID-19 Economic Recovery Grants Administrator, Abby Stone, Administration, Licensing, and Economic Development Coordinator, Annie Lesko, Chief of Staff, Alan Wolf, and Finance Director, Charlene Nardi. They are the real people who manage daily requests from residents and businesses and community organizations, coordinate city communications and media relations, support economic development and key partnerships, and oversee licensing and the License Commission. They write and manage grants, track and fulfill federal and ARPA reporting, and produce the capital improvement plan and the city's annual budget. They lead policy development and legislative advocacy, maintain close working relationships with state and federal elected officials and agency partners, and coordinate citywide initiatives. They also work directly with constituents to tackle often complex issues, resolving them with professionalism and with care. As always, I and the City of Northampton owe a special debt of gratitude to Finance Director Nardi for this FY26 budget and for her skilled, dedicated stewardship of the city's finances and financial departments. Her professionalism and years of extensive experience in municipal finance, as well as her patience and her good humor, are invaluable. Lastly, thank you to the City Council for your service to the city. This is an exceptionally challenging time to be in public service, and I am grateful for your deliberative and your thoughtful work. I look forward to working with department heads throughout the budget process to answer your questions and provide additional information as needed. Respectfully submitted, Jean Louise Shara, Mayor. Thank you for your patience and listening to all that.
Thank you, Mayor Shara. We will take questions during the financial orders later on the agenda. Which brings us to the consent agenda. And I'll read the consent agenda and then ask if there are any removals. The minutes of April 17th, 2025. Approve 25.215 Comcast petition to install underground conduit for cable service to 589 Park Hill Road. That was the public hearing that we heard earlier. 25.250A, appointments to Board of Registrars and Planning Board. There was a positive recommendation on reappointment of Joseph Tarantino to the Board of Registrars from City Services on May 12th. And then note, the appointment of Cameron Roach to the Planning Board will be taken up at the committee's next meeting, June 9th. So the only one here for our vote is Joseph Tarantino to the Board of Registrars, a reappointment. Are there any removals? Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Councilor Labarge, seconded by Councilor Dubs. No discussion on the consent agenda, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved. I love this all being here, so we don't have to do the roll calls. The next items on our agenda. You called for a recess?
No. I'm saying don't need a recess.
Don't need a recess. Okay. Financial orders on first reading. And the first 9 here are the FY25 second round of Community Preservation Committee, Community Preservation Act funding recommendations. And I wanted to ask the council, in terms of thinking about the length of tonight's meeting, we have a few options. We could refer all 9 of the orders to finance. However, finance can't meet before our next meeting on June 5th. So that finance meeting would happen between June 5th and June 18th. And then we would vote on the CPA orders on June 18th. There is no time concern with these CPA orders. It would be fine if they were approved by then. Another option is that we could go through some of them and kind of set a time limit that we might want to use so that we can get to the budget items and the other items on our agenda before it gets too late. I would love to be out of here by 11 tonight, if possible. Or we can go through them all. So what is the pleasure of the council? Mayor, Mayor, Councilor.
Does mean something.
You're up for mayor.
Yeah.
Pretty great.
Yeah. It's going to be a mouthful. Okay. I was just going to say, I'm comfortable with referring these to finance now that we know about the lack of a time constraint. It would have to be between June 11th and June 17th. Can't do before June 11th, but I think that will work. So my recommendation would be to refer it to finance at that time to save time here.
Yes.
Councilor Labarge.
Thank you. I think this is the right way to go. Bring it to finance because you're looking at 9 of them tonight. Plus we have others, plus a resolution. Yeah. And I really feel comfortable moving this to another finance meeting.
Anyone else like to weigh in? Or if someone makes a motion?
Oh, no, I will make a motion. Refer to finance. I agree. That's the best way to handle it. And there are some very significant projects in this list. And to hear about them at a separate meeting.
Right. I'll second that move.
Okay.
All right. I think Councilor Elkins got that second. So motion made to refer items 8A through I on the agenda to the Finance Committee. Motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by Councilor Elkins. Is there any discussion on this referral? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of referring to finance, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, That it's unanimous and will be referred to finance.
I'll be reaching,
between June 11th and 17th.
Yes, I'll be reaching out to the committee members. Thank you.
Okay, that it's unanimous and will be referred to finance.
I'll be reaching,
between June 11th and 17th.
Yes, I'll be reaching out to the committee members. Thank you. Well, I'll send an email around to see what would work for everybody and ask whether you want to be virtual or hybrid.
Okay, so that brings us to the budget orders. And I have a conflict of interest as a member of the Pedal People Cooperative, which has a pre-existing contract from before I was elected with the Central Services Parking Maintenance. Council Vice President Maori will now preside and has agreed to accommodate this conflict by dividing the motion. I'll return at that point to participate in a discussion about everything else in the general fund. And I also have a financial interest that's greater than the average resident in the decisions that are made regarding the Locust Street Transfer Center, which is part of the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund. So I'll be recusing myself for that item as well. So over to you, Vice President Maori.
Okay. See you later. Okay, so I would be looking for a motion to put the FY 2026 general fund budget on the floor for discussion. This is not a motion to approve the order, just to put the budget on the floor.
Make a motion to put the budget on the floor.
Motion made by Councilor Clemmer, seconded by Councilor Labarge. So then I would be looking for a motion to divide the question to separately consider the entirety of the central services parking and parking maintenance budget for the Pedal People contract.
So moved.
Second.
Great. Councilor Elkins, Councilor Clemmer, second. Okay. So now we are going to discuss the general fund minus the central services parking maintenance and Pedal People contract. Yes, we have to vote. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're going to vote on it, and then we're going to discuss it minus the central services. Yes. So I guess we're all here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So now we can discuss. Now Alex can come back. But how will he know? Oh, I said a carrier pigeon. Okay. So now we're discussing it.
Okay, thank you so much for accommodating my conflict of interest. We're now discussing 25.2.
Okay. So now we're discussing it.
Okay, thank you so much for accommodating my conflict of interest. We're now discussing 25.253 in order to approve the FY26 general fund budget minus the central services parking maintenance budget. And Councilor Maori and I suggest that we use this time to ask questions that would like answered during the budget hearing process. So Mayor Shera and her staff will be collecting these questions and will refer them to department heads. If appropriate, make sure they are addressed in the hearings or by email before June 5th. So, councilors.
Okay.
Councilor Elkins.
So we're just posing questions to be answered later.
That is our suggestion, or we think that's an efficient way for both to correct the information that's necessary for us to get. We'll get that during the budget hearings.
Then I have a question.
Great.
I will be interested to understand more about what the planning for the Department of Community Care will be if the EAPS grant does not come through, and whether or not. So I understand, and whether or not the pause on planned expansion will be it, or if that will also mean cuts in what we have existing.
Questions?
anyone's using Zoom to raise their hand. Counselor Labarge.
Yeah, so we're supposed to do this now, or can we do it at home and send it to you or whoever?
Either way, yeah, certainly you can send questions that you have
Right.
At any time, but if they're sent before the budget hearings, then the mayor and staff will endeavor to make sure that they get answered during the budget hearings.
Okay, because one of them was community care, and I thank her for bringing that up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to want some clarification about the student teacher ratio. I'm confused by that whole paragraph because there's, as you say, there's a different definition by DESE, but DESE is the one who defines teachers, what constitutes a teacher. And so if we're talking about paras or other staff, those don't necessarily impact class size. So I'm also going to want to know what's the average class size. And I think I would appreciate in the future, using DESE's definition, because I find this, let's see, I find this confusing because, you use the term educator, teacher, there's different terms in there. So I'm not getting a clear picture of the ratio. So that's something we could bring up during the budget hearings, the school budget hearings.
Can I give you a quick answer if that helps? Is that all right?
I mean, that's okay with me.
So towards the back of your budget book, you have the MPS section.
Yeah.
So when you look at there's a chart that has staffing amounts, and it breaks it down by different categories, whether it's like administrators, so the teacher line is what we're talking about. And then the teacher plus para line is what we're talking about. So it's how we define it in Northampton.
Right.
I can tell you the page number if that's.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But the paras work with, there's like almost 70 special education teachers. So they wouldn't work, that's not going to impact class size necessarily. I find the way that we are defining it not clear in terms of the impact it has on our children's education.
Okay.
And I would like to look at class size.
Yeah, that would be a question for the superintendent. Okay. But it's page 123 shows the staff amounts from 2019 to 25. And then there's a page with projected for 26 as well, I think.
Let's make sure, Councilor Mayor.
Yeah, so just the class size one, and I can ask the superintendent as well.
Did you have other questions?
I just wanted to follow up on that.
No, no, not this time.
Okay, it's up to Councilor Mayor if she's done. Okay, Councilor Rothman.
There they are.
Yes, so just to clarify and reiterate, I think it sounds like we both would like to see special education broken out from the teachers count and the class size count, because those classes look very different in size than the general education classes. Thank you.
Did anyone who hasn't gone yet? Yeah, Councilor Molt.
Yes, I am interested in the plan to hire 8 new firefighters. And I'm happy to see that there is money budgeted for that in case the FEMA grant is not awarded. And I guess the FEMA grant could be awarded for
any number
between 1 and 8 of those positions. So there's a lot of uncertainty there.
Yes.
So I'm interested in a couple of things. One is your message said that we budgeted for the position starting in October of 2025. So that says to me that they would be working by October 2025. Or does that mean the hiring process would start in October 2025?
I believe, and this would be a question for the chief, but I believe the chief would try to start hiring before October for a start time of October.
So that's a question to clarify. And then what would happen to the roughly 300 $35,000 if the FEMA grant is awarded for all 8 positions.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that now, which is it would, for that year, it would roll into free cash.
Okay, thanks.
Would anyone else like to ask a question who hasn't spoken yet? Okay, we'll go back to people. Go ahead, Councilor Labarge.
Thank you. A question, Mayor.
Yeah.
I know about the fire department. I know that in the budget, it is stating about the firefighters. I have a question. When I had heard the our chief of police, telling me that they only had 4 officers on each shift. That's very unusual. So what are we going to do about that?
That would be a question for the chief. I wouldn't say that it's unusual. I believe that's been our staffing for quite a while.
Not quite a while.
Okay, I can get that number.
So what's your answer? I didn't hear that.
There's not an increase built into the budget.
So there's not.
There's not an increased staffing increase.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, because I heard him say that, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, that isn't accurate. That's how many folks we have out.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can find out for how long that's been. I don't know if that's since the cuts in 2020 or from before. I can find out.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Elgin.
Just to follow up about the question about the schools, the student teacher ratios. As we get that information, explaining that, if we get more information, I'd be curious to know if that's a school committee policy that was adopted by the superintendent, or and sort of where that derived, if we're using different numbers than DESE. If that is longstanding Northampton practice or ways of referencing, and if so, where, like I said, where it derives.
I have a question. I'm curious what the impacts would be on the other departments, the non-school departments, if we reduce those departments by both, like say, the amount that would be required to move school funding up to the level services budget and up to the strong budget. So I would appreciate if department heads could just speak to what kind of impacts we would see with that level of reduction. Councilor Rothenberg?
I'm just wondering how department heads would know that, because you're not specifying how we would fund that.
I was going to ask a similar question. It would depend on how those reductions were spread across the rest of the departments. So we could tell you, like, if they were spread equally across, by percent.
Let's go with that.
Okay.
Yeah. Councilor Elkins?
It's kind of a follow-up to your question. I think that a thing that might be helpful in that is if we just go with a percentage across the board, it would be helpful to know what that would percentage look like across the board, across the other departments, but also taking into account the departments that are grant funded, so they wouldn't be subject to cuts. You know what I mean? So if we're spreading out 5 million more to get to schools, and we're in theory taking it from the other departments, it won't be spread equally across. I mean, you could theoretically say equally across, but some are not. Some are grant funded, so that money couldn't be sent to another department. Does that follow?
Right. It would have to be the general fund impact.
Right. So like the Department of Community Care is grant funded. It's not partly, but and to a larger percentage. So I think you understand what I mean. If you're not, I can follow up.
I can also follow up with discuss. Councilor Moulton.
So in addition to the questions that were asked about Division of Community Care, I'd also be interested in having Commissioner O'Leary address the potential loss of the other 2 grants that are mentioned, the infectious disease grant and the public health emergency preparedness grant. I understand that will affect things like disease prevention, emergency preparedness, and community-based care, but if she could put a human face on that, how that's going to be affecting real people.
Sure.
Thanks.
Councilor Dubs.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to sort of express my concern about the staff shortages in the DPW, and I'd like to hear more, maybe hear more about the impact that the 4 positions that will not be funded, or the impact that will have, and also I'd just like to know anything that we can do throughout the next year to help with staffing at DPW. I just think it's extremely important, and there's so many increasing demands for our sidewalks and roads that are in disrepair. And personally, I would like to see an expansion of the DPW over time, and I would just love to see how we could work on that.
Great. Any other questions about the general fund minus central services? Yeah. Councilor Labarge. Yeah, turn your microphone.
Mayor, thank you. Question. Councilor Moulton mentioned something that I feel very serious about also. Is I know talking with Meredith in regards of the federal government of her funding, that one program which she wanted to extend, which is that third one, which was the important one that her and I had talked about, which with the schools, they'd be able to use some of that staff from community care. And at this point, we cannot, because she's still, I think it's going to happen where she's going to lose that funding to adding on that new third tier on that. So that's critical for me.
I mean, so we're pulling for EAPS and are hopeful that we will have that funding, but it is in jeopardy. So that is why we have not funded it in the budget for now.
But that's why I'm asking, because I'm hoping that somehow she's going to get some form of funding for community care on that. Especially with the schools, which I brought up before, was using some of her staff out of the 15 employees.
Yeah, we will ask her to clarify that.
No, that's why she's saying with this, she could help out with that third tier.
I'm not, I can talk to you about it. I'm not sure that there would be additional staff in the schools. I think there are some ways that DCC could help in the schools, but.
That's what I just meant.
Okie dokie.
And I mentioned that before.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we can ask her about
Talked about it, and I talked with you about that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Councilor Rothenberg. Yeah.
Should I just start going through it?
Please.
So I'd like to know how many DPW vacancies are being carried over from last year, and if there's been any movement on their wages, if the contract negotiations are over. I'm also wondering about the $900,000 personnel reserve and why that number was set where it was, but also why it stays where it is in the look ahead years, because in prior years that number was lower and then dropped. So I'm wondering if you've changed how you're using your tool, whether you're not reflecting, increases in departments and maybe you used to, something like that. I'm also curious from the CAPA director about the $650,000. I'm wondering if that's for climate projects, and if they're being paid with cash up front, how long until we see a break even on those? Should I keep going?
It sounds like there was maybe a clarification about your question.
Yeah.
Vacancies on the DPW are carried over from last year, and then the very next one you said.
About the DPW was where we are with wages, if there's been any movement there. Yeah. I'm also wondering if federal funds are drying up, if we're considering reprogramming funds from any capital projects that are lower priority, including projects in the backlog that are lower priority and projects that we recently funded. I'm wondering if we're expecting any increased revenue from increased fire and safety provisions that might impact ambulance revenue. And I guess what I'm really wondering most of all is if, Director Nardi, you might have time to prepare what it would look like if we estimated local receipts at 90% of the prior year. Because I understand that you are being less conservative this year, but I think we are still below the DLS recommendations.
And is that 90% of just one prior year, or the average of prior years?
Just the prior year.
Just one this year in a sense.
No, it'd have to be 24.
Right, because we don't have all of this year yet. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And one last question. I would like to know if you're expecting $2.7 to $2.8 million surplus in just the revenues that are underestimated, and if you're estimating about 4.5 million if we add in expenditures that are overestimated, and if you're expecting about $6 million if we add in the interest. But I also want to note that I appreciate that you're adding the interest in next year's budget, since we didn't for the past 3 years.
And just to clarify, you're talking about fiscal year 26's estimations and expectations.
No, I'm talking about the surplus that we'll have at the end of this year.
So fiscal year 25.
Yeah.
Okay.
Asking me to, I'm sorry, you're asking for me to project what the revenue from, or what free cash will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this broken down by those 3 categories: the interest, the expenditures, the revenue.
Which DLS recommendations are you referring to?
I'll send you the citation.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Clemmer.
Yeah, just any information you have or plans if the federal government does not give us some of the funding that we usually get for the schools and education departments. If there's where the money will come from or what will happen. Thanks.
Councilor Elkins.
I am very anxious to understand how, if it can be known, how federal policies would affect some of the advocacy that's been done around flood control system pumping, the big project up and down the Connecticut River. And I would appreciate Director LaScalia's thoughts on that.
Okay. Go ahead.
One question is just for the mayor to confirm that we are $2.7 million short on the strong budget that the school committee requested. And then I have 4 questions for every department head. Do you ever have to bring your own supplies to work? Do you ever have to work unpaid? Do you ever have staff cuts? Do you have attrition due to retirement? Do you lose positions? And I guess there was a 5th question as well. Just what did you ask for that you didn't get?
Thanks, everyone, for all your questions. Of course, if you have more, please send them in, and the mayor and her staff will attempt to get those to the department heads and answered either during the budget hearings or prior to our June 5th meeting.
I just had a question for Director Nardi about the the 4th quarter. Remind me when those come up.
Those won't come out until August.
August. Okay, thank you.
So I just want to say that I've been meeting with residents from around the city to look at the budget and at the fiscal stability plan, and I invite any of you, even if you're Ward 5 or not, to reach out if you'd like to meet with me. I also want to say I appreciate the work the mayor and the city staff have done to develop the budget, and say that we will only have a better understanding of it through questioning assumptions and getting all the information that we feel we need to make an informed decision. And for members of the public, I encourage you to attend the budget hearings. These are the official times for you to be heard on the proposed budget and to weigh in and ask your questions.
Did we actually announce them? I should have announced them.
We announced them at the beginning.
Okay, at the beginning. I thought we did,
Formal
but
announcement.
I actually meant to do it during announcements.
Yep.
Okay, so yes, May 27th, the next one. Thank you.
Okay, so then I'm going to step away and Councilor Maori will take over and you can discuss the part of the budget that you haven't been talking about and the solid waste budget as well.
That would be anything related to.
I just have a question. The cost of trash and compost disposal have risen. I'm just wondering, like, is it peaking? Is it leveling out? Whatever. But I'm just really interested in seeing, what our deficit is and how we're going to deal with that in the future.
I'm so sorry. There is one more question about that personnel reserve, the 900,000. Will we be getting any updates on that figure? Like, will we have more information now that some contracts are being negotiated before let's say before June 30th? And will we be updating that in our forecasting? Thanks.
I understand your question. Are you asking if the number will change? If the number will change in the budget?
Yes. And even if you don't change it in the budget, I'd like to know the latest information that we have on it.
Okay.
Central services or solid waste and questions.
Yeah, I think this would fall in that category. For Director Liscaya, last year we spoke about reducing the hours at the transfer station. Is that still on the table? Is it still being thought about?
So there's a reduction of hours in this budget.
Thanks.
Okay, so now we need a motion to refer. I would move to refer the bifurcated items, departments that we just spoke of.
Second.
To finance specifically.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The order for the general fund budget and the order for the solid waste enterprise fund.
Well, bifurcated.
Orders that we're referring.
Right. I mean, technically you could vote on the.
But the orders themselves, though, that need to be referred. I mean, we had the conceptual form of the
Right.
budget on
So
the
which
order itself.
You're talking about general fund and
the 25,253 FY 2026 general fund budget and the 25,256 solid
Right.
waste. So my understanding is that those.
So we should vote differently? I mean,
No, I just. I think the way she said it, I didn't quite understand it as what I thought needed to happen. Which is to refer those two financial orders to finance. Maybe that is what you meant.
It is. It's those two financial orders that he had to recuse himself from. So no, that's okay. I didn't use all the words, but
You used a cool word, so.
Yes.
So yes, motion made by Councilor Elkin, second by Councilor Moulton. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so that's referred to finance. Anything else I forgot to do? You would think after how many years I would be smoother.
Thank you all again for accommodation. So I propose that we have, let's see, we have 5 more financial orders related to the budget. They are 25.254 and which is the Sewer Enterprise Fund, 25.255, the Water Enterprise Fund, 25.257, the Stormwater and Flood Control Enterprise Fund, and or at 25.258 in order to approve the revolving funds, and 25.259 in order to appropriate $294,508 from free cash to the Northampton Public Schools Special Education Stabilization Fund. So I propose we discuss all of those and again take questions. I'd say the last one is a little bit different in the last one is a little bit different in that it is. Will it be referred to finance?
With the
Yes, I guess
which
that
one?
as well.
The
Special Education Stabilization Fund. I guess we have an option on that. It's not quite the same as the rest of the budget. But that we discuss those and then and take questions about all of them, and then we'll do a referral to finance. So any questions for the mayor and department heads about sewer, water, stormwater, the revolving funds, or the free cash to the Special Education Stabilization Fund? I would have a question about the stormwater and flood control. We took a DPW tour last year, and it's clear the fragility of our stormwater and flood control systems, and certainly we've gotten grants to help with that. But this budget has been flat for many years, and is there a long-term plan to address the proper funding of the stormwater and flood control? Okay.
President Jarrett, could we just send our regards to Paco? We're losing the Forbes Library.
Yes, thank you, Forbes Library.
Good night, Forbes.
Okay. I would entertain a motion to refer the sewer enterprise, water enterprise, stormwater water and flood control, and the revolving funds to finance.
Move to refer those 4 to finance.
Second. Okay, motion made by Councilor Moulton and seconded by Councilor Labarge. Any discussion on referral? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that just leaves us with 25.259 in order to appropriate $294,508 from free cash to NPS Special Education Stabilization Fund. Mayor Shara, would you like to speak to this item?
Sure. I mean, I covered it in the message. But as I said, sorry, this wasn't on. With Medicaid funding sort of unclear and hanging in the balance, we want to take this opportunity to make this fund as full as legally possible to, to protect against whether if Medicaid's lost, that we have some funding in it for a few years as we go forward. And hopefully there'd be a change and Medicaid would again start flowing.
And what is the balance of our undesignated fund right now? How much of this is taken? Because those funds are frozen on June 30th, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It'll take a second to pull that up.
Sure. Are there other questions? Councilor Moulton.
Yes, I think this makes very good sense to anticipate a potential cut or elimination of Medicaid reimbursements. The money would there's a ceiling though, isn't there a ceiling on how much the school committee could spend from this fund? And if that the answer is yes, then that the remaining money would carry over to the next fiscal year. Is that
right? So
that correctly?
The amount that we're asking for would keep us under the or keep us up to the cap of what's allowed in the fund, and would it factors in what we assume will be used this year.
And then, therefore, if the Medicaid funds are reimbursed, that additional money over that cap would be carried over.
Yes,
that's right, right? Hmm? So I'm not sure I understand. So we're going to increase the amount that we can hold in that account. And then the school and the council has the right to vote another 140, it's just under 141,000, I think, to make it 350,000 for the year. They could take that out.
I think the question is if Medicaid does come through.
Yep.
If Medicaid then be too much in the account.
Oh, no, because we're going to be pulling out money. So we're not going to get 350,000 back. So it'll be fine. And actually, it'll be a different year. When we enter FY 2026, it'll be based on the estimated net school spending for FY 26. The cap that we've done is for the estimated net school spending for FY 2025. So do you see when we increase the amount for our net school spending, we can increase the cap. So we'll be under that.
Okay, so just to be clear then, this is guaranteed money for the stabilization fund. It is not going to be affected by any Medicaid reimbursements that come through at 100%.
Correct.
Okay.
It's additional money, yep. And then to answer your question, Council President, there is $781,094 in free cash.
Thank you. We have the Councilor Rothenberg.
Just before we vote on this, I'd like a very brief recess, but I can wait until you're done discussing it.
Sure. I was just going to lay out our options.
Are you going to do it on second read? You're not going to vote on that part tonight, are you?
No. I don't think there's any proposal.
Okay, great. Well, then I'll have a 2-week recess, or that's fine. Disregard.
The options are refer to finance and take up when we, during the budget hearings, or to refer to the consent agenda of our next meeting. Councilor Elkins.
Move to refer to the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Elkins, seconded by Councilor Maori. Is there any further discussion on referring to the consent agenda of our next meeting?
Yes, I will vote no because I still think this is a very strange fund. I think it would benefit from being revisited, but I'll refer back to all of my prior comments about this on the record, and that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, so but your no vote is about referral, not on the actual item.
Not right. I don't think it should go to consent. I think it should go to finance and be explored more. It's a very strange fund to me.
Understood. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of referral to the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Opposed or abstentions?
No.
Okay. Noted. That passes 8-1. Okay, that's all of the budget related financial orders. Looking forward to the hearing next week. And so that brings us to zoning ordinances not yet referred. And so the city council shall submit proposed zoning ordinances to the planning board for review within 14 days of receipt. And no zoning ordinance shall be adopted until after the planning board in a city or town and the city council or a committee designated or appointed for the purpose of said council has each held a public hearing thereon together or separately. So our rules require that this should go to the Committee on Legislative Matters. And because this is a citizen petition, unlike the option that we had in April, we are required by Mass General Law to refer this to the planning board and to and then by our rules to legislative matters. So I would entertain a motion to refer this to the planning board and legislative matters.
Move to refer.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Elkins and seconded by Councillor Clemmer to refer to the planning board and legislative matters. Discussion?
It's going to be, are you picturing a joint meeting?
Yeah, I'm sure.
That'd be nice.
I can validate that. They have a meeting tomorrow night. And we couldn't post anything that fast anyway. So I'll be in touch with a very competent and ethical, outstanding planning director, Carolyn Mish, about scheduling that.
Yeah, whatever you think is best. I was just curious.
Yep, it must be advertised at least 14 days in advance. So we have that timeline to work with, and it has to happen within 65 days.
That's what I was wondering.
Of this
65.
I will get back to legislative about scheduling.
Thank you. Councilor Mayor.
Yeah, and if the vote tomorrow in planning board, will that impact this?
Yeah, if a special permit is approved prior to the advertised date of the hearing, then the special permit is allowed to proceed. It's and whatever we vote wouldn't apply to. However, if the special permit is not approved by the time the zoning ordinance is advertised, then it would be retroactive to that date that it was advertised. Councilor Rothenberg and then Councilor Elkins.
Yeah, I just want to note an objection for Ward 3 and particularly the neighborhood at Phillips Place and Butler. I don't think that we moved quickly enough on this. I don't think we did a very good service to them. I don't think they're very happy with us. So I just wanted to note that on the record. But I'm sure they will pursue that in another venue, and I don't need to say more about it here.
Councilor Elkins.
I was just going to note, it's my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, that advertising doesn't mean posting a meeting. It means it has to be advertised in the paper.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a referral on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of referral? Okay. All in favor of referral to legislative matters in the planning board, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we look forward to that public hearing. So that brings us now to the last thing on our agenda, 25.252, a resolution in support of an act establishing Medicare for all in Massachusetts. And would the sponsors like to read the resolution? And would you be able to bring this up on the screen? Thank you.
Are you cold?
A little, sorry. Is it? No, please. Okay.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my, okay.
Let's start.
No.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Okay, sure. So yeah, thank you. This is 25.252, a resolution in support of an act establishing Medicare for all in Massachusetts. Upon the recommendation of Councilors Jeremy Dubs, Rachel Maori, Stanley W. Moulton III, and Cleverly H. Rothenberg. Be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Northampton and City Council assembled as follows. Whereas access to affordable, quality health care is a human right and a fundamental component of a decent and just society. And whereas the United States remains one of the few countries in the world that does not fully support that right by offering universal, publicly funded health care to its residents. And someone else?
So Rothenberg?
Sure.
Thank you.
Whereas the rapidly rising cost of health insurance coverage and the shifting of healthcare costs to the insured in the form of copays, deductibles, and coinsurance force many Massachusetts residents to defer care for conditions that benefit from early diagnosis and treatment.
Whereas vulnerable communities are disproportionately impacted by hospital medical debt, with female, Black, and lower income patients having a higher likelihood of incurring such debt. And
whereas there is a severe shortage of primary medical care physicians in Western Massachusetts, in part due to the onerous, time-burdening processes such as prior authorizations that adds the doctor must complete is mandated by private health insurance companies that are more that are more concerned with increasing their profits than providing necessary medical care. And
whereas the bankruptcy of the Stewart Healthcare Hospitals in Massachusetts and unfair profit-driven practices of insurance corporations have increased awareness and mobilized Massachusetts residents against our for-profit healthcare system. And
whereas November 2024, a non-binding ballot initiative, question 6, regarding Medicare for All passed in favor of adopting a single-payer healthcare system in all 11 legislative districts where it was on the ballot. And
whereas the continued cost of employee-paid health insurance negatively affects our local economy, forcing businesses and municipalities to reduce staffing, defer raises, and hire part-time workers. And
whereas the current healthcare system results in 31% of every healthcare dollar going to paperwork, CEO salaries, and profit, while Medicare covers 60 million residents and operates with just 3% overhead. And
whereas the City of Northampton will spend nearly $14 million on employee retiree health insurance during fiscal year 2025, 11.32% of its total general budget. And
whereas the City of Northampton projects a cost of at least $15,421,542 for employee retiree health insurance for fiscal year 2026, a 10.6% estimated increase from fiscal year 2025, compared to prior 3% to 4% annual increases. And
whereas the City of Northampton would save approximately $6.6 million annually on employee retiree health insurance, single-payer health care. And
whereas an alternative system that provides quality, affordable health care for all would remedy the unfairness, unevenness, and disparity of the current healthcare system and advance the goals of increasing access, improving quality, and containing costs. And
whereas Medicare for All, or single-payer healthcare, is a system that would guarantee inpatient and outpatient medical, dental, vision, and nursing home care for all Massachusetts residents, regardless of income, employment status, or pre-existing conditions, and without copayments, deductibles, or cost sharing. By establishing the Massachusetts Healthcare Trust Fund that centralizes healthcare financing and cost control while maintaining the private delivery of healthcare. And
whereas an act establishing Medicare for All in Massachusetts is a bill in the state legislature, H 1405 S 860, with 73 co-sponsors during the last session of the Massachusetts House and Senate, including Northampton Representative Lindsay Sabadosa, who is the lead sponsor, and Northampton State Senator Joe Comerford. And
Whereas Massachusetts consistently has been a leader and innovator in providing quality health coverage for its residents, and the Northampton City Council has supported these initiatives by, for example, unanimously approving on August 17th, 2017, a prior resolution supporting an act establishing Medicare for all in Massachusetts.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Northampton City Council remains committed to providing high-quality health care to city employees and retirees and to making such health care available to all residents of Massachusetts. And
be it further resolved that the City Council supports the passage of an act establishing Medicare for all in Massachusetts. And
be it further resolved that the City Council commends and supports State Representative Lindsay Sabadosa for being the lead House co-sponsor of H 1405 and State Senator Joe Comerford for being a co-sponsor of S 860.
Be it further resolved that the administrative assistant to the City Council shall cause a copy of this resolution to be sent to Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey, Treasurer Deborah B. Goldberg, the co-chairs of the Joint Committee on Healthcare Financing, Senate President Karen B. Spilka, Speaker of the House Ron Mariano, Senator James Eldridge, currently Senate sponsor Senator Joe Comerford, Representative Lindsay Sabadosa, currently co-led House sponsor, U.S. Representative Jim McGovern, U.S. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey, and Northampton Mayor Gina Louise Sciarra.
Thank you. Thank you, sponsors. Would you like to speak to the resolution? Councilor Dubs.
Sure, yes. I'm very excited and happy to be a part of this resolution. I want to thank my fellow councilors for being a part of it with me, and also for resident Shelley Berkowitz for introducing this resolution to us. I think it's amazing. I think that healthcare is a human right, and right now healthcare is in danger by the federal government. As a disabled person, I am a personal beneficiary of Medicare, and I have been most of my adult life. It's helped me to be able to be independent, to not have to worry, when I need health care, that it's there for me. And I would like that to be, I think that everybody should have that right to have health care, provided for them without having to worry about it. And as some may know, in the news yesterday, it came out there was a nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office gave a report that the current bill, that the big awful bill that they're trying to push right now in the federal government, that would lead to not only cuts in Medicaid, but to $500 billion cuts in Medicare, which is astounding and frightening. And so anything we can do on the state level to protect each other, protect ourselves, I think we have to do. So I'm full support of this. Yeah.
Councilor Maori.
Yeah, so just to say, this makes good business sense. This current system, 31% of every healthcare dollar goes to CEO salaries, corporate profits, lobbying, and paperwork. With this system, Medicare covers $60 million with just 3% overhead. A study by referred to the economist and my former professor Gerald Friedman estimates that bill would lower healthcare spending in the state by almost 11%, or about $48.4 billion, even after accounting for the cost of expanding the coverage to everyone. Imagine, the negotiating power of a single payer to lower prices for prescription drugs and medical devices. It also improves health. It brings healthcare dollars under public control. 41% of Mass families struggle to pay for healthcare costs. 36% of our state budget goes to pay for healthcare. And, the criticism about rations, the U.S. already rations care. Rationing in the U.S. healthcare is based on income. And if you can't afford it, you don't get it. And, you may die. So this is really, it's sound. And in Northampton, with a 10.6% increase estimate that's over $15 million for our city employees and retirees. We would save about $6.6 million. Imagine what we could do with that. What our budget conversation would look like. And I just wanted to say, it just clarifies, a common misconception. Although it puts the healthcare dollars in public control, it's not socialized medicine. It's the delivery of care remains private, and patients would have a free choice of doctors and hospitals, and doctors would regain autonomy over patient care. So it's win-win that way.
Councilor Rothenberg.
Thanks. I just wanted to use my time mostly to thank some of the people who contributed to this. I don't have a complete list, and I can't even remember everybody's name that I do know about and can remember. For example, I think there's a fellow who used to be the president of the U.S. Postal Carriers, and I think he's now doing a lot of work kind of spearheading this. So thank you to him. Thank you to Select Board member from Leverett, Jed Prujansky, who so kindly reached out to us to tell us he was excited that we were doing this, that Leverett had just unanimously passed this. And the hope is really that all 351 municipalities pass this. So we're going to be part of a wave. And I also really wanted to thank local tree star Kent Johnson, who did a lot of work. We just put him on the Urban Forestry Commission. He's wonderful. He's a data analyst. And he helped Shelley a lot with doing some of these initial estimations using masscare.org and their calculator. And he was really like a detective, kind of with all the pieces he could find in all of our public financial information. And he came out really close to the figure that I understand Councilor Moulton landed on, which is maybe around $6.5 million worth of savings for the city if this were to go through. Our figure, what Kent's figure was more around $7.5 million, and he thought that was even conservative. And that, of course, doesn't touch the savings for the individuals and their contributions. So I think it's a no-brainer for the reasons that you've said. I join you in your reasons as well. But it makes good financial sense for us.
Councilor Moulton.
Yes, thank you. Thanks to the co-sponsors, and particular thanks to Shelley Berkowitz, who is a constituent of mine, who was the kind of the driving force behind keeping us on track and getting this before the council, so we can weigh in. This is a national issue, of course, and Medicare was created in 1965, and soon after that, talk began in Congress about expanding Medicare as a single-payer health plan for all citizens. Nothing's happened in the last 50 years on that front, and the Medicare for All bill keeps getting reintroduced in Congress every legislative session, at least in this century. So we have to turn to the state, and we have, fortunately, both Senator Comerford and Representative Sabadosa are strong supporters of this. And I think that while the Northampton City Council 8 years ago unanimously approved a similar resolution, it is good for us to keep the momentum going, as was mentioned during public comment, and to really demonstrate, as we hope other communities do, that there is good reason for adopting this at the state level. So I would appreciate support for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other councilors on the way in?
Yeah, I just want to thank all the sponsors for this and Shelley Berkowitz for bringing it to you guys. And I've just been a big supporter of this for many, many years. And I'm really excited to have it being spoken about again. And I mean, hopefully it'll pass. We really need it here. The money we spend on healthcare and like someone said, it's if you don't have money or you don't have a job, and you have to pay for yourself, you get really, really expensive care that you can't use because the deductibles are so high. So things really need to change here. And also the referrals, I forget what it's called. Just waiting for an appointment to go to a specialist too is, people could have a much worse outcome because they had to wait so long to get these referrals and to see their primary to go to a specialist. So I thank you all for doing this today.
Councillor Labarge.
I have to say, I heard Councillor Moulton speaking about many years ago. Fred Robinson on Turkey Hill Road, a whole bunch of us way back, Medicare for all. Medicare for all. So it's just not now. It's been there. And it's been many, many years. And so many people wanted that badly. And they fought and fought and fought. And I was there with them. And I have to say that I have talking with State Rep Lindsay Sabadosa. I also called private insurance companies on this also. And I told Stan about it too. And they are saying it does not affect private insurance companies. If you have them, you can keep them. So thought I'd let you know that.
Yeah, Councillor Perry.
I just want to thank everybody for working on this. Thank you, Shelley. You know, I spent a lot of my life without health insurance. Musicians don't get that luxury often. And I think, as Councillor Dub said, it's a right that everyone should have. So
Sure.
I am gung ho for it. So thank you.
Yeah. I'll weigh in. I'm absolutely in favor. I really appreciate all the work. I actually was doing a pedal people route and ran into Shelley Berkowitz and we started talking all about this. And so I was excited to see it get submitted. And I love also the grassroots support approach to get state to pay attention, that each of us as a community passing these resolutions makes a difference. Okay, so no action is needed. This will appear on our June 5th agenda, and that's when we would approve it.
Did it do the second reading?
Move to adjourn.
Um,
Oh,
Waive second reading.
moved. Well, I think we might want to wait for Dr. Berkowitz.
Are we having a party?
Yeah. I think there might be people who wanted to comment who didn't get to tonight, but that is a good thought. But I think I asked her once, and I believe that they were people who wanted to weigh in.
Cool.
Okay, we'll take it up then. Thanks again. Is there any new business? Okay, I'd entertain a
move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Councillor Perry and seconded by Councillor Clemmer. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. See you on Tuesday.
We're out of here.
Pretty good. Hey. Well,
I know. Look at you. Look how thrilled you are with yourself.
thanks to your signature.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Questions.
The question.